So I'm going to do a twofer here and introduce our next two speakers at the same time. First up is Dr. Robin Newman from the Office of Compliance and CDRH. And I remember when I read the announcement about Robin taking the role with compliance back in 2016. I didn't know her at the time, but how happy I was on two fronts. One, to see a permanent person taking that role, but I was struck by the unique perspectives that she brings as a clinician, as someone who has worked in industry and really knows that business and that side of the world, and the goals and the objectives and the challenges that come with it. But now then was going to also be able to do that exact same thing from the voice of the FDA. So she has been uniquely poised to help us shepherd the Case for Quality project, and we're delighted to have her with us today to talk a bit about voluntary programs. Following Robin, you'll hear from Cisco Vicente, who is our acting project manager for the Case for Quality. Cisco is another one who's been involved in Case for Quality since the early days, and his appointment to that role of program manager or project manager focusing on Case for Quality has been a great asset to the project. He's actively involved both in maturity models and making sure that as we move all this stuff forward, that if we have issues, roadblocks, if we need feedback from the FDA perspective, that we have a conduit for getting that in a timely fashion. So please welcome Dr. Robin Newman.
So I want to tell you also, it says that Cisco is the acting program manager for Case for Quality, but Cisco is actually, this is the full-time job now. And we are like so excited. And so one of the things about him, and one of the things that I think that where he and I have in common, is the fact that he hasn't always lived in this space. Cisco came from a different industry, came from a different space. And so one of the things we're trying to do in this process is to learn from as many different, even other industries as we can. So we're looking at the aerospace industry, we're talking to the IT people, we're trying to figure out what can we learn in this process that will help better inform how we function going forward. So all of this is a really exciting time for us, and a time that I'm really, I think, very privileged to be a part of. So just a couple of reminders. This will be I think a preview of stuff you've seen before for some of you, but I want to just remind us to what it is that we're trying to do at the Food and Drug Administration. And if you think about the strategic initiatives of FDA, one of the key things we're trying to do is promote a culture of quality, not only through Case for Quality in industry, but within the organization as well. So there's a lot of effort being put into that. There's a lot of money being put into that, trying to build a really robust quality culture both inside FDA as well as in our collaboration with our industry partners. And one of the ways we do that is obviously Case for Quality. So this goal is reflected, if you will, and I'm sure you've seen this before. This is a basic skeletal structure of what the Office of Compliance looks like. And one of the most important things there to notice is second deputy in the office is a deputy devoted to quality. This is actually a new thing. FDA did not have it. There was a medical officer in this role in the past, and yet I believe that if we're going to be successful, we need that. So I want you to look at that picture really hard, and then I want you to think and imagine a year and a half from now, that will be gone. So I want to tell you what's happening a little bit within the agency around this. You heard Rachel talk about we're taking a total product life cycle approach to what we're doing with NEST and how important this is. Well, what that means to us is we're using all sources of information that we have in order to make better decisions. So you'll hear the TPLC conversation going on in terms of how we're structuring the organization. Right now we're in a big, I will call it a renaissance, really, within the agency, where we're trying to look at the synergies that can be achieved by what's happening in the Office of Device Evaluation, the Office of Surveillance and Biostatistics, and the Office of Compliance, and bringing these teams together into one organization in the future. So that's where we're headed with TPLC, a super office, if you will. The goal of this really is to make sure that we're utilizing everything we know about the product across the life cycle in every decision we make. So imagine an office of cardiovascular devices, where you have compliance people, you have safety people, you have post-market specialists, pre-market specialists, all embedded in the same group. So when it comes time to make a decision about something, you're being able to do that in context of a very easily accessible, large and broad information and knowledge management system. That's what we're headed for. And so this is how we're structured today. And we have the focus on quality going on, as you can see, by dedicating a deputy to that, we have, and by dedicating a program manager to case for quality, we do that. But in the future, this will look very different. So what are our goals? We're trying to develop systems and procedures that support a center goal of going to ISO 9000 certification. I always laugh to myself when I hear this because I really, but if you think about it, the FDA is a service organization. And a service organization certainly can have a robust quality management system and can stand up to ISO 9000 certification. That is actually where we're headed. And we are making good progress in this direction. So, but in order to do it, we really do have to go back and look at our tools and the things we're using to make sure it's correct. I've introduced concepts like a process house, which is something I'm very familiar with from industry, but service organizations are often not very familiar with that concept. The idea that you would actually go, have a structure for how your quality management system is put together. And we are doing that right now. So there's a lot of this kind of activity happening. What we're trying to do is lay the groundwork and provide the right infrastructure so that when we move to the new structure, it will be a robust, highly organized, trustworthy organization. That's what we're looking for. So when Jeff talks about case for quality, you've all seen this picture. This is a picture of the hammer. The classic approach to all compliance and enforcement activities is that here's the rule, you broke the rule, here's the hammer. That's the way it works. And so the idea with case for quality is to move beyond this compliance issue and just a strict compliance focus and think about what is the right regulatory action, what is the smart approach to dealing with a company where there's a product problem or a process problem of some kind. And so moving to a future where we have quality that is embedded in a synergistic cooperative relationship between industry and all the players in the ecosystem. So again, those of you that are new to this conversation, this is the background that sort of sits behind what we're doing. And Jeff talks about this a lot too. Compliance is not the same thing as quality. I'm not going to spend any time on this. I think we all know this slide. But the important thing here is I want you to, today I'm going to try to show you ways that we're trying to really walk this talk. And we're really trying to make the changes that need to happen to make it work. So we're looking for new metrics, we're looking for ways to collaborate, to figure out how do we encourage a high-performance organization, a high-quality organization culture, both inside the agency and with the companies we're working with, in order to achieve the best outcome for patients in terms of the kind of decisions and actions we make. And then we want to explore how we have to, and this is not the easy lift, this is the heavy lift, how do we actually have to change our policies? What changes do we have to have in regulation? Policies are not so much of a problem, but we actually do have to make some changes in regulations to achieve some of the things we want to achieve. And that is, those are being identified now. There are several working groups looking at this, trying to figure out what regulatory shifts need to happen. Some of the regulations are very old, and they really are, frankly, not modern. I'm just going to put it that way, not modern. They don't reflect modern ways of thinking. They don't reflect modern ways of operating. And frankly, they are so antiquated in some cases to be not only useless, but maybe even a hindrance to getting us to where we need to go. So we're looking at all of the regulatory changes that need to be made, trying to figure out what can be changed just through reinterpretation of existing regs, and in many cases, eliminating certain regs. And as we move forward in this process and we try to streamline, we try to globalize, we try to think more about how we can be more inclusive, how can we use data that you already have that you use, say, for your CE marking? How can we better utilize those data in our environment so that you don't have to do it 2 times? So that we can, for instance, one of my big things I think about right now a lot is back when I was working at Siemens, I did a lot of clinical affairs work, and one of the things I did on a regular basis were these clinical evaluations every year, every couple of years. How many of you do this exercise, right? It's a lot of work. The really robust lit review, looking through your complaints, creating a report essentially that really helps identify how the product is being experienced by your customers, how similar products in your space are being experienced by customers, both positive and negative, and then creating that report in order to maintain your CE mark. Well, we don't see that report now, and I'm trying to figure out how that can be useful to the agency, so we're starting that conversation. Because I think anything that we can do that allows you to use information you already have, tools you've already created, and then leverage those so that they help the sort of whole post-market experience and understanding of that, that's the kind of stuff I'm working on and thinking through right now with the agency. And I say me, it's not me, it's the entire team. So we are working on this together, trying to figure out what kind of advanced solutions, whether it is modeling that's being done. We've got the Office of Science and Engineering Laboratories doing a lot of modeling research right now, trying to figure out what can we just glean from the data, what kind of tools can be created, what kind of things can be done differently in the future so that we do not have to go back and reinvent the wheel and once again design another, parallel randomized controlled clinical trial that will give us information about a very narrow segment of the population and not necessarily about how the product will truly be experienced by the patient in the field. And then figure out how then best to take all of that to make sure that we are really meeting our mission and we are addressing the needs of the American public to get them high-quality medical products I can't even say the thing, of importance first in the world. So public health importance first in the world. So how are we meeting that mission and that goal for the agency, and what tools do we need in order to make that happen? So when we talk about focus on quality for the FDA, what do we mean by that? We mean that we're really looking at an increase in the way we focus on creating higher level of confidence in the manufacturing space. So what things can we do that will give us a higher level of confidence in the manufacturer's ability to create products that are of high integrity and reliable? So those are some of the things we're looking at. We're looking at figuring out how to get you to market faster without sacrificing data. And that you heard in listening to Rachel talk this morning and in listening to Karen talk, there are lots of very creative ways to do that. And there are lots of data out there that are pretty good. Nobody has all the data. There's also lots of data out there that are not so good. But also, frankly, even when data are not so good, when you have advantage to the ability to access big data across multiple databases, those data become better, become more reliable. So we're looking at all of that to try to make sure that we can move to market faster without sacrificing patient safety and without feeling like we've done, less than our due diligence in terms of the things that we're required to do to meet our mission. And then, frankly, we're trying to figure out what's important to patients. So there's a whole other thing we haven't talked about today, that looking at patient preference studies. This is real research that's going on, whether it's rigorous qualitative research. Qualitative is not actually FDA's bailiwick normally, but we are learning to do that because understanding what patients really want, what's important to them, how their lives get better or made better by the things we do and, frankly, do not do is extremely important in this calculus, and so we're looking at that. So the program changes that that you're going to see happening, and you kind of heard this in Karen's, we're looking at how can we remove participants, the companies, if you will, from some of the work planning that happens. Ann Ferreter's team over here does the work planning, does an excellent job figuring out which companies are going to be inspected each year. Don't you want to get to know her? So. That's right. She's open for conversation. But this is no small thing. They're taking a risk-based approach. They're working very hard to identify the right companies that need to be inspected. But it also allows us, using the same kinds of thinking, to take certain companies off the list. Because they've demonstrated themselves to be highly trustworthy, because they have robust systems that we have confidence in, because their experience of the agency has been a very positive one, and we found them to be very proactive in meeting their requirements, many of those companies can be removed from the list. So that's one of the things you're seeing. We're really trying to right-size and risk-base that list. We're looking at perhaps waiving pre-approval inspections where it's appropriate. you had a very positive and successful previous inspection. This product, it hasn't been that long. Maybe we don't need to do a pre-approval inspection. Perhaps we can get a report from you of some kind letting us know how the manufacturing is going in the post-approval space. So that's one of the things we're doing. We're looking at engaging like this and meeting on issues. And what you're seeing, I've seen a big uptick just in the time I've been at the agency in the last year and a half, and the number of times companies come in and meet with us. We have companies that come and meet with us every quarter, just routinely. And we have companies that come in that have had issues or quality issues in the past, and they have a regular schedule where they come in and let us know how things are going. We're trying to use this more because this, I think it does a couple of things. One thing, it gives us confidence that progress is being made, and we can feel it a little bit more tangibly that way, but it also builds trust. So we make commitments, and you can see that the FDA is sincere in their commitments that they make to you and vice versa. You know, of course, if you're not planning to keep your commitments, I recommend you don't come see us. So that would be important. We're also looking at what we can do in terms of accelerating approval pathways, and that's kind of what Karen is talking about. How can we leverage existing data? How could we leverage what we know from even other similar products, if those data are available in, publicly, to help us make faster decisions? Now, recognize, I do fundamentally believe, and Bill Maysell and I actually don't agree on this, but I believe from my experience in many years working in this industry that when you do go really, really fast to market, you actually may be pushing risk into the post-approval space because you cannot test everything. It's impossible. And actually, the clinical trial design process by itself creates that dynamic to some extent. So when you try to go to market quickly, it means that you have to have robust enough quality systems on the front end to really detect issues early and address them before they become problems. It means that we have to think collaboratively between the agency and industry of what are the tools that we can use and what are the things that we can do to help more proactively and I think aggressively look at the post-market space in a way that we're really becoming our own sentinel system. So that's the kind of thing I think that we can do. I think that's possible. I don't think we need to rely on post-market passive mod data reports of various kinds to tell us that we've got a problem. We actually know that, don't we, when we have a problem most of the time. So I think that this is an important thing. And then frankly, we're trying to figure out how we can be more competitive. If we can get you to market faster, if we can reduce the burden that you have to do, lower your overall cost for development, lower your overall cost to come to market, can we be more competitive? Can you price your product in a way that it encourages payers to use American products first, or products produced here first? I won't say American products because that's not necessarily true. But more importantly, it allows the American consumer and the patient to have access, as Jeff says, to high-quality medical devices of public health importance first in the world. And that's clearly where we want to go. So when we talk about value, what is this worth to us? And the value of quality, I think about it kind of in terms of the different stakeholder groups. High quality is valuable to industry, and we're going to let the people in industry talk to you about why case for quality is important to them in a minute. High quality products is valuable to patients for the obvious reasons. It gives them confidence. They can rely on the product. They can rely on the industry. It builds trust, and it builds, I think, the right kind of relationship that encourages providers to prescribe the products that are created here. I think about it in terms of how is it valuable to the agency. If I have confidence and I do not have to worry about your organization, I do not have to spend any resources or very little resources on your organization. And frankly, that is extremely valuable to us because we will never have enough resources to do all of the things that if we were going to go 100% for everything, we couldn't do it. It would be impossible. So the more we can focus the quality proposition in the organization to move it upstream, to really focus on quality culture, to do the things that are required, the things we're talking about in case for quality, the easier it is for us as an agency to really enjoy and recognize the value of that in terms of our ability to put our resources where it really is, where they're really required. So this is kind of the FDA's vision of where we think case for quality is going. So I'm first I want to tell you where we are today from where we were when I first joined the agency a year and a half ago feels like a monumental leap. Anybody else feel that way? It is so exciting to see the momentum and to be a part of that and to see the way that both, I think, frankly, my colleagues at FDA as well as the industry has worked together to embrace this new proposition. So I think this is really tremendous, and hopefully by the end of this year, we will have identified a pilot program that we can start beginning in 2018. And try to test out some of these ideas and see how it goes. And so far, that seems to be going quite well. We're on target, and we're excited about it. Over time, the program is voluntary, and over time, we hope to be able to model options around this program that will encourage even smaller companies that maybe have fewer resources, create a model that they can participate more easily. Frankly, it's a little bit harder for smaller companies right now, but I think that I am confident, actually, that there is a future where we can find a way to do that. So I think that's going to be very exciting. I see that probably a couple of years out. 2020, really focus on improving and enhancing the program, formalizing it, making it really a part of the way we do business, and then moving forward, really expand it, figure out new tools, new options. I think this is one of those programs that if we're careful and if we are really continue to be diligent in the way we work together, we will over time, I think, create some options that we haven't even considered yet, and an opportunity to really, I think, push this mindset, and that's what I think it really is, a fundamental change in mindset, push it out across the entire medical device industry, and maybe even to pharma. So it could happen there too. So look, a couple of things going. Cisco's going to come up and talk to you in detail about some of the things that we've been doing. Voluntary program update. These are some of the things we've already accomplished. So we've already figured out how to remove certain participants from the work plan, which I mentioned. We're already trying to figure out what is our expectation, and we have a nice, I think, a good picture of what we expect from a high-performing organization and manufacturer. We've already figured out how to establish some submission requirements and some mods that we're talking about. I'll get into that a little bit more detail. And Cisco, I think you're going to expand on that significantly, et cetera. We have several things in progress, too. We're, developing the process for routing our submissions for the pilot program. This is something, actually, I had no idea before I came to the agency how hard it is to, do anything. I mean, there are 17 steps to everything that I would think you just go 1, 2, 3, done. But this is a process, and so we are I'm working through all the various steps and all the things we have to do in order to realize this pilot program, and it's happening. We've had a couple of fumbles. We thought we would get it by July, and it's going to be October. So we are working on that. But the most important thing is it will happen. We will move forward with it. And the agency, I will tell you, all of CDRH is really very excited about the potential here and what it can do for us. I want to talk to you about some of the ideas we have. Where might we go with this? And what are some of the things we could do? We've been talking with our import branches. Could we develop a kind of trusted trader program? Kind of like, trusted, what trusted buyer, what trusted trader program. The idea being that you are a company that has engaged in this process. We know that you have a high-quality culture. We know that you're an organization that's committed to early reporting, to transparency, to being trustworthy, et cetera, and we've tried to match that commitment on our side. So could we have a trusted trader program in the future that would really facilitate, frankly, remove barriers from your import procedures? Make it easy for you. You get the good housekeeping seal of approval, and kaboom, you're in. So that's a possibility. Modifications to the corrections and removal process. So, listen to this. So I am so excited about this, I can't stand it. So recalls are really hard. They really are. They're hard for you. They're hard for us. Sometimes they make almost no sense. I mean, if you think about, I think about my time in industry where I would write up my rationale for why I thought this was not a Class 1 recall, and it was, sorry, it's Class 1 recall, Robin, that's all it is. So everything with a Class 1 recall, it seemed like to me. It's not true, but it just felt that way. And what happens, of course, is, I would say, but there's no risk. Or we've already mitigated all the risk. Or look, we're a really good company. We're doing a good job here. It's done. It's fixed. Too bad. Class 1 recall, Robin. So I think in what we imagine in the future is applying things like the benefit risk guidance document, really thinking hard about that. That in combination with case for quality and the work we're doing here, I think could create a paradigm in the future, and we're working through the logic of this. Dr. Adam Saltman, who is a cardiothoracic surgeon who is a member of the OC team, is the lead for this project. But we are trying to think about how could we do recalls different in the future. Would it be possible, for instance, if you are a trusted organization, if you are an organization that we know to be highly trustworthy, could we have a future where you come to us, you've reported the recall on time or the field action or whatever it is on time, so we know about it. You've already got a corrective plan in place. You're already acting on that plan. The evidence is that the benefit to keeping a product available to patient would outstrip the benefit of removing the product, or the pain of removing the product from the field. So we believe that it's in the patient's interest to keep availability there. Maybe that's not going to be a recall. Maybe that's going to be something else. Maybe that'll be some market withdrawal. Or maybe it won't be a withdrawal at all. Maybe we'll keep the product available and we'll put appropriate labeling around it, and we'll carefully and actively monitor the mitigation that's in place, and we'll move forward from there. So, and that would not be a Class 1 recall in that picture, because it is not, it is a managed risk, if that makes sense. So this thinking is I think, very revolutionary for us. We are not there yet, so no promises made. But I think that this kind of thinking really embraces the whole idea that we're trying to create here with Case for Quality. An organization is highly trustworthy, responsive, transparent, and doing the right thing. Now, there will be products, no matter what, I don't care, the problem is so bad, that's what it is. It can't be mitigated. It has, there is risk that cannot be managed appropriately, cannot be put into a formula where benefit is outweighing the risk. That's always going to be there. And it won't, most of the time it will not be intentional, just like it isn't today. It's just sometimes bad things happen. But a lot of the things that we've done and that have in the past created situations, especially if you've got this great mitigation in place, maybe that would be a different scenario in the future. So think about that, more to come. We are looking at that. Establishing 510K submission team to find opportunities in that 510K space to make it easier for you. What kind of things might we do? And we've talked about some very interesting things along that line. If you are, again, trusted company, Case for Quality, doing a great job, could there be modifications that currently we would expect you to do a full 510K on that could go into more of a special category? So what would that look like? I don't even know. But there are some possibilities. Again, the idea is to figure out a program and figure out a policy that rewards the right behaviors. The goal of FDA, and people always told me this, and I'm not sure I actually always believed it, but people always told me FDA's job is not to, catch you being bad. FDA's job is to make sure that you're doing everything you can to stay in compliance. Now, I was always told that. But I actually believe that is where we are. I believe if you think about what Dr. Shuren is talking about and the way we're looking at things right now and the things we're doing, we are trying to find every mechanism we can that incentivizes companies to do the right thing proactively, to have this high-quality, high-robust culture in their organization, to drive, quality as far upstream as possible in everything that they do so that we don't have to worry in the post-marketing, post-production space. Things will happen, but again, we're not going to have to worry about it in that space because we have confidence in one another that this is going to be the case. So we're looking for all kinds of things along these lines right now. They're all being explored. And we're talking with our colleagues in ORA, we're talking with our colleagues in OIR, ODE, trying to think of things that would be possible in a paradigm where Case for Quality was fully realized. So why does this matter to FDA? Because for us, it's all about the patient. The better we do in this space, the more likely we are to actually meet our mission. If we're spending all of our time chasing every little bit of string for every little frayed thing that's out there, we are very likely in a situation where we're not fully meeting our mission to doing everything we can to really advance public health. So this allows us to get there a little faster. It's a better use of our people and resources. It's certainly, and this is what I love about this. This makes us, and think about TPLC and the way we're going to work in the future and what we're asking in the collaboration with industry, it creates a learning organization, both within your companies, within the agency, and then, Frank, a more global learning organization throughout the entire ecosystem around quality and medical devices. We learn from each other. We engage actively, proactively, transparently. This is a learning organization. There was an old saying, I'm sure you've all heard it, if only the company knew what the company knows. You know? So what this does, what all of these changes do is they create an environment that encourages that knowledge sharing and encourages that kind of transparency and rewards it. Rewards companies that participate in that way and encourages us to participate in that way so that it benefits the American public and the patient. And then finally, flexibility and responsiveness. We are looking, when I said some of the regulations, it's not that we have to change the regulations. It might be that we change the way we enforce or interpret the regulation. This is an adaptability thing that is not natural to a compliance officer. I mean, that is the rule. You broke the rule, you get the hammer. Sorry. But that is something we actually do have to do, because there are many ways, just like there are many ways to demonstrate the clinical side or clinical efficacy of a product. There are many ways, I think, to achieve the goals we're looking at, and we're trying to be as nimble and open-minded as possible, flexible around this, to consider multiple paradigms. And what is the best way to go? I don't know yet, but again, we're thinking about that. So enabling smart regulation principles is one of the first things we're doing. Again, I told you we're looking through all the regs and saying, do we need this? Is this a good reg? Is this a dumb reg? Is this an old reg? So we're making that list of, you know, housekeeping. What do we want to do? We're trying to globally harmonize. One of the things that we're having a conversation now is I love the new 13485-2016. Anybody agree? Yo. So I actually think this is the first time I've really seen, that particular standard look so much like 820. So we've done the gap analysis. We're talking about that. I think that could be a really revolutionary thing if we are able to fully recognize 13485, because that could be a game changer. Think about MDSAP. One of the reasons I think EU does not participate in MDSAP, my theory alone, is that because we don't recognize 13485. It's such a lift for them to go that direction. But what if it weren't? That would be a very exciting change. So we're looking at that and examining the possibilities around that space. We're trying to promote innovation. We're trying to create an environment where companies are allowed to innovate. When Cisco gets up and talks about some of the things we're doing, one of the things that just shocked me, I don't know why I didn't ever really think about it this way because I came from industry, is that there are lots and lots of ideas that companies have, and they don't innovate along all of those ideas because of the regulatory burden for the 30-day notice. I was on the regulatory side, so I was like, I just had the burden. So I wasn't thinking about it in quite that way, which is very interesting. Promoting patient engagement, I've talked about that already, and patient safety, certainly. We don't want to do anything that in any way sacrifices patient safety. But I think that we have to do a little bit of myth-busting in our own minds and in the minds of everybody else, and understanding that just because you have not done a randomized, gold standard clinical trial does not mean you are sacrificing patient safety. And I think we're getting there. Just because you're not telling a company, I'm going to shut you down because you have an upstream manufacturing violation, doesn't mean we're sacrificing patient safety if that can be mitigated and managed appropriately so that the product rolling off the line is conforming product. So I think that all of this has to be considered in this process, and it's interesting to think about, and at the end of the day, though, that is the one thing that will not change. We will not sacrifice patient safety. We need to be adaptive, responsive, outcome-focused, not so much focused on the process. And this is one of the things I think that fundamentally changes at FDA. We have been very process-focused as an agency for a long, long, long time. And it's because that is actually the way the regulations are written. They encourage that way of thinking and that kind of behavior. Being outcome-focused allows adaptability and flexibility in the process that we're just not used to exercising. So this will take some time, and I said to a couple of people in the beginning, understand that this is not like, here it is today, here it is tomorrow, so let's switch new things. This is going to happen in a wave. It's going to start at the center, it's going to roll, it's going to wave, it's going to happen that way because we cannot flip these switches and just expect immediately behaviors to change both at industry and at the agency. So ride the wave. It's a good wave. And over time, you know, I believe that as we do this and as we learn from doing it, we will get better and better at it, and we will create a new paradigm for the future. And then finally, at the bottom of everything, and most importantly, risk-based decision-making. Do the right thing because that's where the risk lives. Don't spend your resources when you know that the risk does not live there. So this is kind of fundamentally, you know, the sort of foundation for what we're doing. So I want you to just reflect a minute on what you've heard this morning and just think about what a revolution this is. You heard about NEST, and then you heard about the application of RWD for an actual submission. And you think about benefit risk and what's all involved in that and how that changes the way we think. Think about things like the general wellness guideline where we've actually gone through a guidance and said, here's a whole bunch of healthcare products that we're not even going to regulate because they're a general wellness product. This is not important, from a risk perspective, this is not of public health importance. So you think about the things we're doing and all of the different things, and they all fit together in the same philosophical space, which says we want to use our resources where they matter the most. We want to focus on the things that have the highest public health importance. We want to partner with our good players in industry to ensure that we work together to create the right paradigm for the future that does bring the highest quality medical products to the American consumer first in the world. And that is exactly what we're trying to do. So all of the things happening at FDA are a reflection of Dr. Shuren's philosophy, and they are going to be realized in a wave over time as changes in policy and changes in practices. So I think that's exciting. And I want to hand the conversation over now to some people from industry to talk a little bit about why is case for quality important to you. So Luann, you're volunteered to stand up first.
Oh, I am. Okay.
So why is case for quality important to you? You should. She's coming. And Nathan, you're next. All right.
Well, first of all, Robin, I love your enthusiasm and your engagement, and right? And I'll tell you, with any change that needs to happen at FDA, at industry, around the world, that enthusiasm is going to be a requirement because we need to be evangelists about how we make these changes. So thank you so much for that. So why is case for quality important to me and to my company? I'm from Medtronic. I'm Luann Pendy. And it's important because it's important for the patients. At the end of the day, we all have a mission to serve our patients. It's as simple as that. And so whatever we can do to improve patient outcomes, things that matter to patients, is what we ought to be doing. And so we should be increasing the value of the products that we have. And by increasing the value, it means better outcomes at a lower cost, okay? At a company like Medtronic, we have, my compliance people are over there, we have over 250 inspections a year, worldwide inspections a year. So there's a huge amount of time that's spent in inspections. I think all of us agree that in recent years, our efforts towards achieving better patient outcomes within a company are lopsided. We spend a lot of time worrying about compliance to the regulations, a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of effort thinking about that, where it would be better for us to be focusing our money, our time, our effort, and our passions on patient safety and product quality. That's a better use of everyone's time and money, and in the end, it will increase value to the patients. And so as we go through case for quality, all the things that you've listed there allow us as a medical device manufacturer to create a better focus on the patient. So that's why we're in it, and full support. Medtronic has been a full supporter of case for quality since the beginning days, and we're all in. We've got a table of Medtronic people over there who are nodding, saying, yes, we're all in, because we just think it's so important for the patients. Okay, who's next?
Thank you.
Hi, I'm from Edwards Life Sciences, Nathan Tenzer, and I think Luann's a hard act to follow here. She just covered a lot of ground. I don't have an entourage table. I'm very jealous. Also, I'm one of the, I think I might be the only operations guy in the room, so I'm going to duck. No? There's two of us. Let's stay together. You know, for us, it's about the patient, and it starts and ends with the patient. And I think Luann started down this road, but I'm going to take us just a little bit further. We spend a ton of time focused on compliance or focused on making sure that all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. And we're so worried about that number of items that go into that funnel that there's just not enough space for us to go after some of the other things that can truly affect the performance of that product, or the mistake proofing of the production, or a number of other places where we can drive costs down. And I think that that's a reason why, you know, we have some of the rising healthcare costs that we have. So it gives us an opportunity to really bring the other side of the coin to the table, to drive these improvements, and really ultimately drive the performance out to the patients that need these products. Every time we have an audit, it's about $15,000 a day. We don't have as many audits as you guys, thankfully. Yeah. But, and you know, an average audit goes 10 days. So you're at $150,000 every time the door gets opened. We have products that we take out to the market, the Sapien 3 that we talked about. The previous generation, the XT, we had 70 30-day notices that went out, you know, each with a significant cost. That's $500,000 of company money that's all about those types of submissions. We've got some stories that we shared in a smaller session about some of the unintended consequences of 30 days and driving some of the actions, even with something as innocuous as a minor change to our water system in one of our clean rooms, and how that drove just money through the roof that just didn't need to be there, and we could have spent those resources so much better on other things. So we want to drive the patient outcome, and we want to make sure that Americans and actually, you know, patients around the world are getting the best possible products that they can get, and that's our motivation.
Great, thank you. We're Connor Dolan from Boston Scientific. Couldn't see you from here.
Thanks, Nathan. Connor Dolan's my name, from Boston Scientific. I'm based out of the Marlborough office. I look after our global quality system. So I have a couple of things written down, actually, just to help me on this. And so first is, so why is this important to Boston Scientific? So Boston Scientific's quality policy is I improve the quality of patient care and all things Boston Scientific. So the patient is absolutely at the center of everything we do as a company, which completely aligns with the work that Cisco and Robin and everyone in this room is actually working on at the moment. So it's clear strategic alignment with what we are as a company. You know, we see ourselves as a high-class manufacturing company. You know, when people talk about high-quality manufacturing, that's where we see ourselves. And when we did a case study from one of our manufacturing plants in Galway in Ireland, which is one of our larger manufacturing plants of Class 3 medical devices, we did 69 30-day notices, for example, in 2016. If we didn't have to go through that, you know, for manufacturing changes, what you might regard as pretty minor manufacturing changes, we had to go through 30-day notices. If we didn't have to do it in that format that we've always had to do it in, we would look at 15% of our CAPAs would be implemented quicker. So therefore, we are bringing quality quicker to our patients. We look at facilities. It facilitates relative predictability in planning. So just from an organization perspective, if you take that uncertainty out, which you can plan better. It would allow earlier implementation of continuous improvement and process optimization projects, which actually resulted in, just from that small sample size, we looked at about $700K in savings. And then when we look at the headcount, the people involved in actually pulling these submissions together, that looked at about $500,000 in savings, and that was just a very small sample size. You're looking at in hard cash, well over $1 million there, as well as faster CAPAs, faster improvements to our patients, which is exactly what we want to do. So, yeah, this is really important to us as a company.
Thanks, Connor. How about Al Cross?
Thanks, Al Kraus. I'm with CBRX. The reason we probably got into this most is because we're a small company, and most of the groups in the room are larger companies, and we do look at things a little differently. You know, the main things that we're thinking about, you know, most of the companies here, if they have a major quality issue, you know, you're going to recover from it. We aren't. You know, it'll be the end of the day. So one of the main reasons we got into it was just to make sure we're taking the best practices and moving them forward, but then also to take this and look at, you know, a lot of the talk about the 30-day notices and stuff. That would help us somewhat, but, you know, are there other things that can be done to speed the PMA process along, because everything's serial right now in that entire process. So being open to the discussion where we can start working some of those things and moving those forward, some of the things that Robin was talking about, hopefully will be real helpful to us. So, you know, we've been at it from the start and excited to continue on. We did also participate in the initial pilot program, and I was telling Cisco this morning that we just had a meeting yesterday before I came out here where we were integrating our homegrown databases, and one of the things that we were coming up with was going in and validating the integrity of the existing data that we're trying to pull together. And it's exactly one of the things that the CMMI group found for us last year when they were bringing up. So good learning from things that we know we need to do, just need to find the resources, time, and money to do that. So.
Thank you. And then Bill from Stryker.
Hi, I'm Bill Symbolic from Stryker. This is really easy, and I'll try to take us home. It's been said several times today that everyone here is aligned in our mission. Our mission is to make healthcare better. There's such a strong strategic alignment, but also the unprecedented opportunity to work with FDA's leadership in really, once we have the recognition that compliance does not equal better quality, better patient outcomes, better healthcare, that we can change the world, and it's such a great opportunity. And as we look at it, the opportunity cost when you get less money spent on compliance and more spent to invest in your patient and achieving our mission, it's a no-brainer. There's no question about it. So,
thank you very much.
Thank you, Robin.
You're welcome. Well, I want to thank everybody.